when we started this journey about 9 years ago, we did not have the level of confidence that we were going to achieve the level of outcomes that we now see today. The feedback from outside the venue and outside your questionnaire is even more impressive. People from other states who participated or heard about these sessions are just full of envy and glee. Said, look, how I wish we can replicate this in our state. The fundamental difference is that we've moved beyond the political speak to actually get buy-in from across, wide spectrum of our society. And that for me is the singular achievement, not what has come out, but that we, in christening the sessions, a strategic dialogue, we actually have commenced a dialogue on development. That is what I think is most significant. And once we can build consensus around key issues, then the fallouts, the other points you've raised of implementation, monitoring, and evaluation become easy because they're tools that exist to do all of this. So the key issue is agreeing and building consensus around what we're about or what we intend to do. And that, I believe, we have commenced, and I want to thank you most sincerely. But this is just the beginning. These are just the first steps. The journey is still quite long. But I'm optimistic that we'll get there. And we'll get there faster and sooner than we even imagine. My initial thoughts are that, as I drill down your recommendations, we want to put timelines. In terms of prioritization, I think the key top three issue areas as per our prioritization. We would like to drill down further the first quarter, Q1 next year. So, for instance, we would like to, have, similar sessions, not just to, now that we've built consensus, we want to do drill down retreats on those components so that we can come out with very clear, defined and implementable action steps for each area. Look at our resource requirements and look at the desired outcomes and essentially how we need to blend both. I will say that the first of them will be social welfare. We may not be able to cover everything, but I would like to have a session on education, right? And another session on healthcare, so that we can drill down on the specific initiatives, both short, medium, and long. What do we do with our school system? But in order to do that, we'll need to do a bit of pre-work in terms of data gathering. And these sessions will follow the same format, but largely, it's going to be largely dominated by operatives, that officials of the NDA and, people, professionals, technical people who have actually implemented projects like that outside. So that by the end of the first quarter, we would, as we begin to implement our budget, we will we can see a clear linkage, a tie-in between the budget implementation and some of those key priorities, from the sessions. So your work is not over. If anything, it's going to be a lot more intense. And the second would be the institutional revolution, looking at specific areas as agriculture and agribusiness, because hopefully we'll spend the next 6 weeks trying to gather as much of the information as we need to implement. And believe it or not, industrialization, because we've identified specific transactions in terms of industrial parks, which we need to get off the ground the first half of next year. We need to also begin to emphasize, you've made a point about shared learning, because with the experience we've just garnered, that shared learning does several things. First, improves the individual knowledge and team knowledge of the level of activities in the areas, different areas of government. But more importantly, it helps us identify the gaps, right? And what we need to do, the catching up that needs to occur, which I hope will motivate us to make the required investments to catch up. Because, like I keep saying and I tell people, the challenge we have is not necessarily, monetary or financial. I guess the issue is one of how we approach our development. I will not want to put it as bluntly, but I think that we have just not prioritized properly. And we've not been rigorous in reviewing and re-examining the issues we face today. Because if we did, well, then we will almost inevitably come to the conclusion that the real challenge we face today is waste. And except we begin to rethink our entire goals, our processes, and our attitudes, no matter how much money we earn, no matter how much resources you put into the system, we're not going to optimize those resources. That, for me, in my view, is the real problem, the bane of our country. And we stand a chance as a sub-national unit to begin to create new models. If we waited for the whole, the change we expect will not come as quickly from the center, because that center is fairly large and a bit unwieldy. But if we can begin to drive that and just demonstrate how you can, just by reviewing your systems and processes, make significant savings, you can account for your resources and how you are deploying the resources. You therefore find out that any incremental resource you get will achieve so much more for you. And that's just the ABC of governance. So that's why what you're doing today, and this report is much more significant than you can ever imagine.